Okay, so Randy, here we are for our weekly meeting, and I'm having a bad hair day, so I hope you don't mind, but we're still going to talk about a deal, like what happens when you do owner financing with a land trust and it goes south. So I hope you don't mind talking to me like this, do you?
No, I think it's a lot of fun, Don.
Yeah, yeah. Well, sometimes a girl just doesn't feel like getting dressed up, doing her hair, putting on her face. So I just thought this was the nicest thing to do for everyone.
I
And
think
you
that's
know
a
it's
great
still
idea.
me because, right? I mean, who else carries
Yeah,
this thing, right?
who else carries a wand around all the time?
Okay, so what was the deal? You were going to share about one that went bad.
Yes, I think the people are watch these videos that we put on probably ask themselves, why do I need to learn how to use a land trust? I mean, why is it important to me? Why should I care? Their attorney's probably telling them to use an LLC and probably doesn't know anything about a land trust and wouldn't talk positive about it if they did. So I think a practical story might help illustrate why it is important to use a land trust. Uh, a number of years ago, I sold a piece of real estate that was in a land trust, and as usual, I sold the beneficial interest. And the guy, it was a single guy, and he was making his payments for several years, and everything was going fine
Well, let's
until,
look at some real numbers. What did you sell? What did you buy it for? And then how did you turn it back around?
well, gosh, I don't even remember what I bought it for because I'd owned it for a number of years. But I sold it, as I remember, I sold it for about $100,000. He had a small down payment of $3,000 or $4,000.
Okay, so
Um,
basically he put down a 3%. We're talking on we're like a FHA down payment, not even that,
right,
right?
right. And my incentive was that hopefully he'd get to a point where he'd qualify for a bank loan and cash me out.
Okay. Well, so tell the reason why you would use a land trust because you could have done a lease option, you could have done an owner carry. So why don't you just say why you used the land trust on this anyway?
Well, that's a good question. A couple of answers. This was a guy that had rented his entire life. Yeah, he was in his 50s, and I kept saying, Bob, you're never going to end up with anything if you just rent your whole life, and probably no one's ever going to sell you anything unless I do it. And I'd had a good relationship with him up to that point, and so I was just trying to help the guy out to put him in a position that no one else would probably ever do, and do a good thing. I sold it to him using the land trust because all I sold him was the beneficial interest in the trust on an installment contract. And we're going to get into more detail at our seminars on October 27th and 28th about this type
This
of
is a
transactions.
great blend between a lease option and an owner carryback, I think, with even
Yeah,
more
yeah.
protection. So I'll quit talking so you can get through this story.
Well, that's all right. It's just the other reason is that people feel more like they are owners if you actually sell to them on a contract and have a closing and they write a check for $3,000. It sticks better generally. But ultimately, what happened was one month I didn't get a payment from him, so I got in the car and drove over there. And as I pulled up, the front door was standing wide open, and so I went in, and there was no Bob. He had disappeared in the middle of the night. Now, if I had sold it to him conventionally on a standard contract, and where he had judicial foreclosure rights, at that point I couldn't find him. The only thing I can do is hire an attorney to represent me, an attorney to represent him in court to testify that they can't find him and look after his interests. I get to pay two attorneys to clear the whole thing up and get my property back. But because I used the trust, all I had to do was repossess his interest, not
And what did
foreclose.
that look like?
And
What does repossessing an interest look like?
you just tear up the assignment that you gave him at the closing table, which is held in escrow. You notify the escrow agent that the payments are a default. The escrow agent tears up the assignment, and nothing else happens. All you do is change the locks on the house and find a new buyer or new tenant. So it really simplifies the entire
Wow, you
process,
saved yourself a lot of time and
unlike
a lot of money.
and a lot of sleepless nights. Yeah, those are real aggravating situations if you have to foreclose. So that's just one of 50 reasons to use a land trust in your real estate investment business. And we'll get into a lot more detail and examples at the seminar with you on the 27th and 28th.
Right. I mean, I love land trusts for particularly small down payments, especially when there's underlying financing that needs to be left in place. I just, not only for the reasons you said, that and more, it just seems like it's got so many benefits.